All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into one of the absolutely funniest, yet genuinely fascinating mysteries in the whole animal kingdom. I mean, we've all seen it, right? A tiny 5-pound house cat, literally just a little ball of fluff, fearlessly staring down and sometimes even taking a swing at a massive, muscular apex predator like a tiger or a lion. It makes zero sense. By all the normal laws of nature, that little guy should be running for the hills in absolute terror. But they don't. So today we're going to unpack the hardwired psychology, the wild instincts, and just the sheer audacity that makes tiny cats the undisputed bosses of the feline world. Let's get into it. To kick things off, there was this reaction that perfectly captured the internet's collective shock. Any more proof that house cats don't fear anything? This was posted alongside a crazy viral video back on April 5th, 2020, by Indian Forest Service officer Susanta Nanda. And the footage? Unbelievable. You've got a standard, everyday house cat just sitting casually outside a cage. And inside that cage, a fully grown tiger. The tiger softly approaches, looking curious, maybe kind of predatory. But does the house cat run? Nope. It locks eyes, totally holds its ground, and aggressively tries to scare the tiger away. And the absolute wildest part? The tiger actually gets freaked out and steps back, which perfectly highlights the absolute absurdity of this physical mismatch. I mean, on paper, this isn't a fight, it's a snack. We're talking about an animal that weighs maybe 10 pounds, squaring up against a 400-pound apex killer with dagger teeth. Yet the house cat holds the line. There's even footage floating around out there like this one wild YouTube clip of giant orange cats literally fighting off tigers just to save a couple of kittens. The physics simply do not make sense, and honestly, that's exactly why we're so mesmerized by it. So within hours of Susantananda posting that clip, it racked up over 8,000 views, and it just snowballed from there as people flooded the comments. The internet was completely captivated. Folks weren't just watching a cute animal video, they were witnessing a literal glitch in the natural order. People were laughing, sharing, and just desperately trying to figure out how a creature that sleeps on our laptop keyboards has the sheer nerve to intimidate the king of the jungle. But you know what's really fascinating? Cultural history has actually recognized this dynamic for a long, long time. As folks were filling up the comment section, one user totally hit the nail on the head with the Hindi phrase "sher ki mausi Billy," that roughly translates to the aunt of the tiger. It's just such a brilliant cultural tidbit, right? It shows we've kind of always known who's really in charge. Even though the tiger is this huge, powerful beast, the little cat is the older, bossier relative whose authority is simply undeniable. All right, moving on to our next section, the kitten exemption rule. So we've seen how adult house cats handle giant tigers, but what happens when tiny kittens are unleashed upon adult house cats? If you watch those compilation videos of kittens interacting with older cats, the adults almost always look absolutely miserable. You'll see these tiny, wobbly little furballs relentlessly pouncing, biting, and climbing all over the big cats. The adults are just left looking exhausted and completely on edge. There's this one hilarious viral video that actually narrates the adult cat's inner monologue as it finally escapes a kitten, just sighing, "Free at last, free at last." The big cats look like they desperately want to fight back, but they're completely paralyzed. Why is that? Well, it all comes down to how kittens approach. You see, a kitten doesn't approach a big cat like a threat. It approaches using a fellow love language. They just confidently trespass right into an adult cat's personal space, fully expecting warmth, cuddles, and bonding. They don't even understand the concept of territory yet. They're literally just looking for a warm body to snuggle, and that sheer overwhelming innocence completely short-circuits the adult cat's natural defense mechanisms. So the crucial point here is this biological reality. Adult cats possess a hardwired, natural instinct to protect kittens, not to bully them. Even the meanest, most formidable feline is biologically programmed to look at that tiny, annoying fluffball and think, okay, I must protect this. It basically grants kittens an absolute exemption from the usual rules of feline combat. They get total 100% immunity to be as mischievous and annoying as they want, effectively making them the tiny little rulers of the household. Next up, let's look at the science of the slap. But what happens when that kitten grows up and that biological immunity wears off? When cats finally decide to throw paws, we have to look at the actual science of the slap. According to feline behavioral experts at Perform, when a cat raises its paw to strike, it's usually driven by one of 4 core reasons. It's not just random violence, right? It's actually a highly sophisticated form of communication. They slap to play, to assert dominance over territory or resources, to seek attention from us humans, or because they're reacting to physical pain. Let's break these down really quickly. First up, we have play fighting. This is incredibly common among cats that are bonded with each other, especially littermates. When they play fight, they're essentially just taking turns demonstrating dominance in a safe environment. The key indicators here are that they bat at each other with their claws completely retracted, there's no biting to injure, and most importantly, it's quiet. You won't hear any of that hissing, growling, or wailing that you'd normally hear in a real street fight. It's literally just practice. But things change the second resources are on the line. And this reveals a really fascinating tension in a cat's DNA. You see, cats are not naturally social creatures at all. Out in the wild, they live entirely solitary existences. We've only really domesticated them to tolerate living with us and other animals. So when an alpha cat feels like its resources, the food bowl, the litter tray, or a favorite toy are being threatened, those wild instincts kick right back in. To assert dominance, they aren't just going to playfully bat, they'll use hissing, an arched back posture, and aggressive slapping to control their territory. Now, what's really interesting is how this applies directly to us. Have you ever had your cat walk up and just casually smack you on the leg? Well, they aren't trying to fight you for dominance. They are just seeking attention. Cats are incredibly smart, and they quickly learn cause and effect. If they slapped you in the past and you reacted by feeding them, playing with them, or opening a door, boom, they banked that information. It's a learned behavior. And experts say if you want to break this habit, the absolute best, though definitely the hardest thing to do, is simply ignore them. Quick sidebar before we move on, because we have to mention a really crucial safety tip here. If your normally sweet cat suddenly becomes aggressive and starts lashing out or slapping at you or your other pets completely unprovoked, you need to pay close attention. This is very often a sign that the cat is unwell or in physical pain. They're lashing out purely defensively to avoid any further injury or discomfort. So if you see this sudden shift in attitude, it is absolutely time to schedule a visit to the vet just to rule out anything serious. Which brings us to our final section, attitude over body size. So tying this all back to that viral tiger video from the beginning, how exactly does a tiny cat weaponize these instincts against a giant? The answer is pure psychological warfare. Cats know that getting into a physical brawl with a massive opponent is a terrible idea. As behavioral videos point out, the smart move is to intimidate rather than cause real physical harm. A smaller cat will use leverage to its advantage, like jumping to a higher place so it suddenly appears much larger. It'll puff out its fur, arch its back, and unleash this fearless, guttural growl. They project this aura of absolute danger, basically convincing the bigger predator that attacking them is going to be way more trouble than it's worth. Which leads us to the ultimate question we have to ask ourselves after looking at all this evidence. When a tiny domestic pet squares up against an apex predator that could literally crush it in a single bite, does physical size actually dictate the hierarchy in the feline world? The answer, which was beautifully articulated by a Twitter user reacting to that viral tiger video, is a resounding no. Size doesn't matter. Attitude does. Because cats are solitary, instinctual survivors, they don't defer to the biggest guy in the room out of some sense of social politeness. Nope, they defer to the craziest, most confident energy in the room. A house cat wins because it firmly, truly believes it is the most dangerous thing on earth. And honestly, if a tiny ball of fluff can convince a 400-pound tiger to back down just by sheer confidence, you really have to wonder, what could we achieve if we carried just an ounce of that fearless feline energy into our own lives?